Hey, blessings. Welcome to today's law enforcement devotional. Today's read was Ezra 9 and 10, and I'm going to tell you right off the bat, today when I got done with the read, I was left with a little bit of confusion. Looked at some commentaries, got even further confused. So I'm going to tell you both sides of the argument at the end of Ezra, and it's also going to be at the end of Nehemiah, because these two books are very similar and they end the same way. And I know this, I studied this earlier in the year and was pretty well convinced uh, of what I had heard in a seminary class, and I believed it. But reading the commentaries, they are opposite arguments for this. So let's get into it real quickly. Ezra 9 and 10, the people have gone back to Jerusalem. And yesterday's read in Ezra was really good. And today we see Ezra, just these two chapters. Ezra and some of the Israelites bring up the fact that they have intermarried. And very quickly they start talking about a commandment that was of God, passed down through a prophet, about Israel not intermixing or marrying with other races. Now, we've seen before when the Israelites were wandering in the desert, and Balaam tried to trick the Israelites and send, I think it was Moabite women, into the camp and have them intermarry, and that he tried to make that a stumbling block to God, because he wanted these women to bring their religion in, and these men went with them and did some sacrifices and practiced some of their religion, and Moses said, "Stop it! This is not what God wants." But it was for religious purposes. Um, but I've never seen an actual anywhere in the Bible an actual ordinance from God where He says, "You Israelites," and I will quote in chapter 9 verse 2, "You Israelites are a holy race and you shouldn't intermingle with anybody." They call themselves a holy race here, and they become very prejudiced against anyone that is not Jewish. And they've been prejudiced in the past, but always in the past when you read, um, the Israelites were always told that the foreigners in your camp who've come to believe in your God are part of your people. You're inclusive. You allow other people who love God to come in and live with you and be a part of your group. Some of the greatest stories in the Bible, the centurion of great faith who built the Jewish temple, but was not a Jew, but loved the Jewish people. And there are just so many stories where King Artaxerxes paved this way for them to go back to Jerusalem. He wasn't a Jew, but anyway, they get really caught up in this, and I think it becomes a stumbling block for them. And that's what I learned in a class, and we did some extensive study. And at the end of Ezra and at the end of Nehemiah, the Israelites are sending people away and not including them in the worship of God, which is completely contrary to what God has called us to as far as being image bearers and populating the earth with His image bearers, and reigning over the entire earth with what God has told us and commanded us with His rules, to live the way that He has called us to live. That's what God's called us to, not to turn other people away and be, so exclusive that we won't let anybody else in. Now, we believe, even more so now as Christians, that the only way to God is through Jesus Christ. But we go out and try and evangelize the world to come to that understanding and that knowledge, that they can have faith and believe that. so that they can gain salvation. We don't say, no, you're not a Christian, you can't, we're not even going to tell you about him, we don't want you to know about him, you have no part with us. And that's what the Jews and the Israelites do. They kick people out and they say, you have no part of us. Even the ones who are married and have children say, hey, get rid of them, they're not Jews, they don't deserve it. Now, a lot of the commentaries will tell you that this was a success, that the Israelites preserved their bloodline, if you will, and they remained pure. Well, that's an argument. That's one side of the argument. Again, I said I would tell you both. I tend to believe that the way Ezra and Nehemiah end, these are not success stories. These are stories to show us their failure in that they did not allow other people to come in and know who God was, and they became very exclusive and considered themselves a holy race and became very prejudiced against the rest of the world. Now, with that being said, I don't hate or have any animosity towards Jews. I love Jews. The Jewish people, Jesus was a Jew, and they are God's chosen people. They are a royal, a holy nation. They're not called a holy race. God calls them a holy nation, a nation of priests, so that they can go out and evangelize to the rest of the world, not so they can keep it into themselves. It's just a real interesting read, but my confusion comes in because, when you got two very distinct camps that argue the exact opposite points, sometimes, I get confused, like, well, gosh, shouldn't we all be on the same page? Shouldn't we? Well, that's part of life, and that's part of this Christian life, and the world is not always going to agree, but we can agree to disagree, but know that here, this is a failure. We're not supposed to keep people out because they don't believe the way we do. We are to evangelize to them and share Christ with them and to the world. That's what we're here for. So tomorrow we're in Nehemiah chapters 1 through 5. We're going to start that book. So hope you read ahead. Come back here tomorrow, and in the meantime, be safe.